start into our Corporate Services Committee meeting. Welcome this Wednesday, September the 15th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to conduct a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Bradley. Councillor Campion. Councillor Diodati. Councillor Easton. Councillor Edgar.
I'm here.
Councillor Furtick.
I'm here also, thank you.
Councillor Gale.
I'm here.
Councillor Height.
I'm here.
Councillor Yip.
Present.
Councillor Redicott.
Present.
Councillor Rigby.
Present.
Councillor Whalen.
Present.
And we have regrets from Councillor Butters, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick comment before we begin. I wish to remind all present that our discussions, presentations, and questions must be conducted in a respectful manner. Let's move into our next part. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2021 I believe it's T-100. My writing might be wrong. It might be J-100 on long-term care. I have a conflict because my daughter-in-law works in long-term care. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gale. Are there any other conflicts? I do not see anybody putting their hands up. Let us start into our agenda for this morning. Our first item for consideration is the one that actually Councillor Gale was referring to, which is CSD 50-2021, the award of tender for the long-term care Gilmore Lodge Fort Erie facility. Can I get Councillor Rigby to move that motion? And can I have Councillor Edgar second that one, please?
I'm good with that.
Are there anyone wish to speak to this morning? We do not see anybody wishing to speak to this. That being the case, can I please have you vote electronically, yes or no? And that is carried. And good morning, Councillor Easton. Let us move on to our second item, which is the legislative schedule of meetings. Councillor Height, can I have you move this motion? And Councillor Redicott, can I have you second this one, please? Are there any questions to this legislative schedule of meetings? Seeing none, please vote electronically, yes or no. That is carried. Our third item this morning is the recommendations from the Joint Board of Management, Niagara Courts meeting held on August the 19th, 2021. Councillor Whalen, can I have you move this motion? And Councillor Easton, can I have you second that, please?
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Comments to this report and motion? Seeing none, please vote electronically, yes or no. That is carried. Our next item is recommendations from the Regional Development Charges Task Force meeting that was held on July 29th, 2021. Can I have Councillor Furtick move this motion? And Councillor Gale, would you please second this motion?
I will. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Comments to this report and motion. So, Councillor Redicott, please go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, I'm not sure if I'm ahead of the agenda on this or not, but I'm wondering whether during this discussion, and I unfortunately wasn't at the meeting, I was happily on vacation, whether this is a point to raise the flag that I think we should be looking at some type of differential in development charges on single-family dwellings based on perhaps square footage. So I don't know whether this is a timely comment, but it's something that I think I want to telegraph to staff that I'm thinking that, because in terms of affordability, if you're paying the same development charge on 1,000 square foot house as you are on a 4,000 or 3,000 or 2,500 square foot house, that really isn't helpful. So anyways, that's my comment, and I'm just raising that up the flagpole.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Redekop. And Commissioner Harrison.
So thank you, Chair, to Councillor Redekop. Duly noted, and the DC group will be dealing with a number of different issues as we develop our background study. So since you weren't at the meeting, that noted, and our team will take that into accordance when we do further work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redekop. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in the same vein as Councilor Redekop, I would imagine with market value assessment, it would be geared to size-wise anyway, would it not? So it would fall within that vein.
Can you repeat that again, please, Councillor Whalen? Sorry.
On the same line as what Councilor Redekop was getting at, as far as the size and the cost factor per residential residence. If it's market value assessment that the taxes are geared to, they would incorporate the size of the house anyway, would they not? Maybe Commissioner Harrison can answer that.
So, Chair, so we're kind of talking two different things, right? So we're talking, on the one hand, we're talking about the DCs, and then we're talking about the taxes for market value assessment. So market value assessment would take into a number of factors after completion when impact catches up with what's been built. So they're a little bit different, but the value of the home that is constructed and the impacts investigation of that site would really determine what the market value assessment would be after construction.
Well, just another question, would it not fall in the same line though with DC charges with the size and the value of the house? It's kind of hard to assess every house for size-wise, would it not be, as opposed to market value assessment coming forward?
Like I said, the DCs would be based on square footage because that's how it's allocated. The home itself would be assessed on the inspection or whatever the final cost of the building would be. So while square footage would have an impact in the market value assessment, it wouldn't be the only factor that would be considered.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
As we have no more speakers to this report or motion, can I please have you vote electronically, yes or no? That is carried. Next report this morning is the motion respecting National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Can I have Councillor Yip move this particular motion? And Councillor Edgar, would you please second that motion?
Excuse me, Chair, I'm sorry. Councillor Redekop was going to be my second.
Councillor Redekop, can you please second that, please? Perfect. Please, so any questions, comments, and Councillor Yip, I see your name up already.
Thank you. I won't read the motion because everyone will have seen it twice now. On Monday, August 23rd, we received this resolution from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And I think it's important that we pass this to acknowledge and support the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which has been declared as September 30th, 2021, and is now a federal statutory holiday to give time and space to reflect on the history and legacy of residential schools. Recent uncoverings of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all orders of government to immediately address the recommendations in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. We all have a role to play in reconciliation, and most of the calls to action fall within the mandates of federal, provincial, and territorial orders of government. There are several that fall within the purview of municipal governments. Where it doesn't fall within our own mandate, we can always be clear in our support for other orders of government to take action on reconciliation. The 94 calls to action cover a wide range of government responsibilities, including child welfare, education, language and culture, health, justice, commemoration, museums and archives, training for public servants, and a few specific initiatives related to reconciliation. To me, it's important that we pass this resolution so that our communications staff has time to reach out to Indigenous community leaders, if that's what they wish to do, to work on what sharing stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities looks like for when we mark the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th. Thank you, Chair, and I will be asking for a recorded vote on this.
Thank you, Councillor Yip. Councillor Redekop.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Yip, for bringing this forward. I'm really pleased to be able to second this particular motion. The town of Fort Erie has a very close relationship with our Indigenous community here. The town of Fort Erie has a strategic alliance with the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center. We're looking into developing a strategic alliance with the Niagara chapter of Native Women, both organizations of which have been very active in our community and are active currently in trying to impress upon the broader community the significance of the history that Canada and Canadians have to confront with respect to issues like the residential schools. But it goes on and on. I mean, it's the denial of medical treatment. It's the boil water orders still that exist in some Aboriginal communities. And so I'm very pleased to be able to support this. The town of Fort Erie is actually closing its offices on September the 30th, and I know that there are a few other municipalities in Niagara that are doing the same thing. I know there are others that are focusing on the education aspect of this, and that's very, very important to the Aboriginal people. When asked what is the thing that the non-Indigenous members of our communities can do, the answer is always educate yourself about the history of the Indigenous people in Canada since the arrival of the Europeans, and more particularly in Canada since Confederation and the things that have taken place since then. So if individuals want to go to the Fort Erie Native Friendship Center website, I think the Niagara chapter of Native Women website, you'll be able to find resources that individuals can have resort to assist in educating themselves. And finally, the Fort Erie Coalition on Diversity and Inclusion, which is heavily populated by members of our Indigenous community, as well as a diverse number of individuals with a variety of backgrounds, is going to be having a special celebration on September the 30th. We're going to be doing an orange shirt day and encouraging people in Fort Erie to place an orange shirt in their windows or provide some other symbol of their support of the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations and the new national holiday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Redekop. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a matter of housekeeping. I know it may put a question to Madam Clerk. The line just after the National Shirt Day in the motion should not read a federal statutory holiday because I don't believe it's provincial at present time.
Through you, Chair, I believe that the federal government has declared a statutory holiday, which is what that whereas reference refers to.
That's fine, as long as it covers as it says statutory holiday, but it's not provincial, it's just federal, even though it says federal in the first portion of that line. So if you're okay with that, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whalen. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want everyone to be assured that I support the notion of having a national day. I just have a question related to the date, which is closely following that is Thanksgiving, and we're now placing a position of businesses being required to shut down for those days or not. I'm not sure what the rule is on that, but has that been considered at all in the discussion?
I'll go to CAO Tripp.
Through you, Chair, I'll take a stab at it. And just a point of clarification, just in terms of strictly technical, what the federal government did not actually establish a a statutory holiday like Canada Day or Victoria Day. And it's in the whereases. I know what the intent of the motion is, but from a technical legal perspective, they did not do that. We certainly are taking the view that we're not required to close, and the provinces you've seen has taken that view as well. Different municipalities are doing different things. In fact, I met with the CAOs on Friday as part of a bigger meeting. As much as we tried to be in alignment, there are different things happening in different communities. But we are at the region as an organization focusing very much on the education piece and working with our Indigenous groups to determine what the best sources and way of going about that is. It's still a work in progress. I hope to have a memo to council in terms of the program anticipated for the region for the next regional council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that. I understand now that there's not a national day that is declared that has to be recognized, but it's up to the municipality to do so. That does not mean that it may not happen in the future, but I think that there needs to be some discussion when that's starting to happen related to days off for employment so close together. Now, seems to me we all take Thanksgiving Monday off, so I think that may not be a national day either, if I think about it. But I think that is something that both are certainly is traditional with Thanksgiving, and I think having this, the Truth and Reconciliation happening and having that day is an excellent idea. It may be something that we need to have some further discussion as we go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Yip.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify some of this as well. So this was recommendation number 80 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The individuals, the communities that were involved in the work there requested September 30th specifically. Really, if the concern is September 30th or Thanksgiving, I would imagine the Truth and Reconciliation Commission would suggest getting rid of Thanksgiving because it is a holiday that essentially marks colonialism and the colonization of Indigenous peoples. But it's a federal statutory holiday in that it applies to federal organizations, federally regulated organizations. The province has already said, unfortunately, that they will not be marking a statutory holiday for Indigenous peoples, just to provide some clarification there. So it has no impact on businesses and whether they choose to be open or not.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yip. Councillor Redekop.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to briefly comment that several years ago when Family Day popped into the head of the Premier of the day, it was announced without any consultation, with hardly any advance notice, and that has an impact on businesses. I'm a business owner, and I understand the challenges associated with various holidays, and maybe in the grand scheme of things, when there's further thought and consideration given to this, maybe one of our traditional holidays that's less meaningful and historic will come off the calendar to be replaced by this particular holiday, which September the 30th has some significance for the Indigenous people of our country. And I think we need to focus more on the importance of trying to fulfill recommendations in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report and try to deal with our past and make sure that everyone is included in the life of our country and our communities. Those are my comments. These things are dumped on businesses all the time, and it's not just the federal government in this instance. It happens provincially as well.
Thank you, Councillor Redekop. Councillor Easton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I I'm looking at the very high level and nature of this motion, and I certainly support us putting the flag in the ground, really, and saying we're going to recognize this important event in history. I don't hear anyone talking about meeting quotas, which I think is really, really important. And I think that from a practical perspective, if we use Fort Erie as a model where they've had and taken advantage of the positive opportunities, and they've created opportunities, obviously, to work with their Indigenous community, this is something that I think is going to be more important, developing those relationships, finding a way to have the conversations, finding the ways that we can not only understand, but when there is confusion, that our relationships are productive enough that we can actually work through differences in interpretations. And that's where I see all of this going. So to me, it's necessary because we need to have this marked, no question about it. But in Lincoln, we're very, very fortunate to have a new museum opening. It's provided an opportunity for us to take advantage of ceremonial, Indigenous ceremonial conventions. And it brings greater education. It makes the ease of working with others when we don't understand all those elements much, much easier. Even through development, when you find that you have, as we discovered, we have the posts of a longhouse now as a park area in one of our subdivisions. We have a grave site and learning and participating in all of the conventions that we needed to with the different levels of Indigenous orders. So yes, we definitely should move forward with this, but I see it as such a great opportunity. And I'm very, very grateful that the Indigenous representatives in our community and outside of our community are there to support us so that we can make this not a checking off of boxes, but really a development in those relationships. And I look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Easton. I do not see anybody else on the list at this point. So as per the request from Councillor Yip, we will do a recorded vote on this. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have some members absent, so I'll start with Councillor Easton.
My apologies. Support.
Thank you. Councillor Edgar.
Favor.
Councillor Furtick.
I'm in favor.
Councillor Gale.
Yes.
Councillor Height.
Yes.
Councillor Yip.
In favor?
Councillor Redicott.
Yes.
Councillor Rigby.
Yes.
Councillor Whalen.
Yes.
Chair Foster.
Yes.
That is carried, Chair.
And that is carried. Thank you. And just as a quick comment after, because otherwise Councillor Height and Councillor Redicott will go after me. Very pleased to see this. This has come from AMO, and this is a very important file for AMO, and it's also at the FCM level as well. So I'm very pleased that Councillor Yip has brought this forward, and very pleased to see that we have moved this motion. So thank you. Next item is CSD 59-2021, vacant land at 745 Crescent Road in the town of Fort Erie. Councillor Gale, can I get you to move this motion? And secondly, can I have Councillor Rigby second it? Very good. Any questions or any comments to the report or to this motion? Seeing none, please vote electronically, yes or no. And that is carried. Our next section, we're moving into consent items for information. Now, we're going to have a presentation regarding the Q2 2021 financial update. There's also going to be an individual discussion on 6.2 Councillor Gale, I'm assuming 6.5 you wish to raise and deal with separately. For 6.3 and 6.4, does anybody want to raise and deal with that separately? I do not see anything. So that being the case, let us begin. I'm going to call on Beth Brenz, our Acting Associate Director, to provide a presentation regarding the Q2 2021 financial update. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Beth Brenz, and I'm the Acting Associate Director of Financial Reporting, and I'm happy to be here this morning to present the Q2 2021 Q2 financial results. For your reference, this is a high-level slide overview of my presentation this morning, and really the goal of the presentation is to complement the report in front of you today. Before we jump into the actual numbers, this slide provides an overview of the policies that guide our financial strategy, as well as our financial reporting requirements. So staff consolidate and summarize all financial reporting requirements into our Q2 financial report, which is available on our external website. It is also attached as Appendix 1 to the report in front of you today. This is a very large detailed report and meets the reporting requirements as outlined in our policies. While I appreciate that maybe not everybody's going to go through page by page, start to finish, in the report there's a hyperlink, and it does give you access to jump to the table of contents, and you can jump around as you see fit, depending on what you're looking for. While we're focusing on operation and capital results today, there's a lot of other information in the report, like reserves, debt, investment, accounts receivable, etc. So the purpose of the report today is to provide Q2 financial results to council for information purposes only, both the normal operating variance and as well as COVID-19 financial impacts inclusive of the taxpayer relief reserve projections. The $9 million in corporate COVID funding, which is Safe Restart and municipal relief funding, has been fully allocated in 2021 based on our forecasted expenses and other known incremental funding sources known at the time we prepared the report. I do want to note, if forecast assumptions change, there is a risk that we will not have enough expense to utilize the full $9 million, which just means that we would recommend that that funding be deferred through the taxpayer relief reserve to be used for 2022 COVID-related expenditures. Also to note, at the time of preparing this report, there was a couple of things that we did not know the status of that haven't been included. One such announcement was the extension of the PSW wage enhancement funding, which has now been extended to October 31st, 2021. Staff estimates that the gross cost of this is about $500,000 and is 100% funded through the ministry. In addition, the long-term emergency care funding of approximately $3 million has now been confirmed between July 1st and at the end of the year. So what you're seeing in front of you, we only had confirmation up to the end of June for long-term care COVID funding. So the financial results that I'm presenting today include actuals as of June 30th, 2021, and then forecasted out until the end of the year. For our levy program, we are forecasting a surplus of $4.9 million. $6.8 million relates to our regional departments and general government and is offset with a deficit position in our ABCs. And these numbers are inclusive of both COVID and non-COVID expenditures and revenues. Also to note, the surplus of $4.9 million as a percentage of our gross operating budget is less than 1%. Some of the factors impacting our regional departments, the surplus of 6.8, is largely driven by salary gapping due to delays in filling vacancies as a result of COVID-19. Would like to note here that the level of surplus related to salary gapping is a one-time surplus that's largely tied to COVID-19. In addition to the salary gapping, we are forecasting approximately $3.7 million surplus associated with our transit service, tied to reduced service levels, lower ridership, and deferred service enhancements. We do have some savings that we forecasted due to pandemic-related reductions in administrative costs, such things as travel, staff development, etc. The savings noted also were offset by an increased allocation of our investment income of $3.4 million to the rate reserves and deferred development charges in accordance with the reserve policy. Some of the factors that are impacting our ABC deficit of 1.9 million, we have seen some lost revenue in our court services from fines that have not been collected due to COVID-19 of approximately $500,000, as well as an allocation of a legal claim payment related to the NRPS of approximately $2 million. Our water and wastewater program is projecting a deficit of 0.7 million, which is also less than 1% of gross budgeted expenditures, and waste management is projecting a surplus of 4.5 million, which is 7.1% of their gross expenditure budget. Factors impacting water and wastewater deficit of 0.7 million, 0.6 million in lost water sales due to a wet spring and summer to date, combined with decreased water usage as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. 0.5 million in costs greater than budgeted for sludge management due to increased volumes. It's largely due to weather and performance of our Niagara Falls plant. 0.2 million in gross costs greater than budgeted for chemical costs due to higher pricing than what was budgeted. The pressures noted were offset by net utility savings of approximately $1 million. Factors impacting waste management, a surplus of 4.5 million. We did have a change in our net market revenues, which is largely driving that surplus. We're forecasting a surplus of 4.8 million from the sale of recyclable commodities arising from increased commodity prices. The savings noted were offset by 0.2 million in increased organic processing costs arising from increase in volumes. And we did see a reduction in our garbage bag tag revenue of approximately $0.5 million. Also wanted to note that the forecasted increase in commodity revenues past 2021 will be to the benefit of the 2022 budget and will be incorporated as applicable. So turning to COVID-19, this slide provides an overview of our COVID-19 financial activities by program area, which have been forecasted until the end of the year based on actual results as of June 30th. I would like to draw your attention to the total Niagara region line. Our forecasted COVID expenditures until the end of the year for the Niagara region, inclusive of ABCs and the rate programs, are $53.7 million. A large portion of these expenditures, approximately $52.4 million, are being funded with confirmed external funding. And I would like to draw your attention to Appendix 5 of the report, which provides a detailed listing of those confirmed funding sources. The remaining expenditures at this point in time will be funded from reserves of approximately $2.6 million. Would also like to note that the 2021 budget was approved with approximately $19 million in reserve funding for COVID-19 expenditures. And based on these revised Q2 forecasts, we're now looking at only drawing $2.6 million as a result of the incremental confirmed external funding. And also there is more details related to these expenditures and revenues on Appendix 2 of the report. So when we look at the financial results cumulatively from the start of the pandemic until December 31st, 2021, we are forecasting total expenditures of approximately 115 million, which is the total cumulative column on the far right. And we have forecasted approximately 100 million in confirmed external revenue, leaving a net cost to the region of approximately 14.4 million. And looking just at 2021, the net cost to the region is forecasted to be approximately $13 million, which will largely be funded with offset and base budget associated with redeployed staff that were funded on the base, but have been supporting the pandemic, with the offset again being the 2.6 million in reserves. There is an offsetting resulting $1.3 million levy surplus as well. So this slide has been included to provide the committee with a revised forecast of our taxpayer relief reserve. The forecasted reserve balance for 2021 is now at 49.1 million, which is an increase of 21.2 million from the 27.9 that was originally forecasted as part of the budget process. And the main factors driving this change is largely a result of the confirmed incremental COVID funding that's been confirmed after the budget was approved. And in addition, we are forecasting the $4.9 million surplus on the levy, which we would anticipate transferring to the taxpayer relief reserve. So it's important to note that this increased balance is good news going into the 2022 budget, as we will again plan to draw on this reserve to cover our 2022 COVID-related expenditures, as well as any one-time asks that are being brought forward as part of the 2022 budget. So this slide provides an overview of our stabilization reserves and the targets that we look to achieve. The taxpayer relief reserve does remain underfunded when compared to these targets. The water stabilization reserve is within our funding targets. Wastewater remains underfunded, and the waste management stabilization reserve is within our funding targets. The purpose of this slide is to show the consolidated status of the capital program for the levy and rate programs. For context, we have currently have 613 active capital projects, which are all in different phases in their life cycle and are constantly changing. Which phase of project is in can significantly impact these numbers. While this is a consolidation of the capital program at a high level, it does show that the total height of the bars year over year is increasing, which means that the value of active projects, is growing to address our infrastructure gap. And the percentage of spent and committed is also growing, which tells us we are making progress against these projects and getting back on track with spending during COVID-19. We did see a reduction in expenditures in 2020. There's lots of details on the capital results within the Q2 update report. And I ask you to refer to pages 72 to 107, and you can find information such as project budget, project to date, actuals and commitments, budget remaining, forecasted spend for the duration of individual projects, and estimated year of completion. Finally, we've summarized the activity in the capital variance projects for your reference. The CVP is the accumulation of funds budgeted for capital projects which are not used and subsequently used to fund unforeseen costs and other active capital projects. For 2021 to date, a net amount of $7.7 million has been available through project closures and budget adjustments for future capital projects. And this also has been considered for our 2022 capital budget planning process, and staff will be recommending $3.5 million of these, the balances in the CDP projects will be utilized for the 2022 capital budget. So staff will continue to monitor COVID-19 funding announcements and costs and provide updates, continue to provide updates quarterly on forecasted impacts as well as impacts on our reserve. And staff will continue to use these financial results to inform the 2022 budget planning for ongoing pressures and mitigation opportunities. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Beth. Being as the report and this presentation are pretty much inseparable, I'm going to ask Councillor Campion, who just came on board. Good morning, Frank. Councillor Campion to move and Councillor Easton to second that we put the report onto the table. In the room we have, of course, Beth. We also have Director Chamberlain, and we also have Commissioner Harrison that are available for questions on this. So, Councillor Redekop, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It's very, very helpful. I just had a couple of questions for clarification, and I wonder if you could turn to slide 6, which outlines maybe the slide before. I've got page 6 on my presentation on my computer, but that's not it. So it's the one that talks about Q2 summary results levy programs. And that's not it.
One more.
Yeah, that,
That's the ABCs.
that's it. So, yeah, that's it right there. So the 6.801 million being 1.04% of the gross budget. The gross budget would include all budgeted items, whether they're levy or whether they're non-levy. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
So what percentage of the actual levy the 6.8 million represent? Is it somewhat just under 2% or 1.75%?
Through the chair, 1.5 approximately. We're going to revise that to approximately 1.7%.
Okay, would that have an impact then on the bottom figure, 0.54%, if we're talking about the levy?
Yes.
Okay, and then just for some further clarification on what I have is slide 15, but it's the one that talks about capital project status. That's it. So the 194 million under Q2 2021, those are uncommitted reserve dollars, but they're designed to be utilized for future asset or infrastructure revitalization.
Yes, through the chair, those funds have been approved by council. They just have not been spent yet or actively procured.
If they've been approved by council, are they not then committed to specific projects?
They're committed, yes, you're correct through the chair. They are committed by council through the budget process. What we're delineating here is from a actual spend and procurement perspective. They've been approved, but they haven't formally been committed through the procurement process.
Okay, so we do have reserves that have not been committed, but will be utilized for future asset infrastructure revitalization.
Yeah, just a second. We'll go over to Commissioner Harrison for this.
So I was just going to say, I think Ms. Brenz answered the question, but just on that chart, the 80% represents the capital program that has either been started or has been procured. The 20% is the capital program that has not been hasn't been started, nor has it gone out to tender. So that's what that reflection is, because that was a question last year, I think, Councillor Redekop, that you had asked. And if you look at 2020, one of the reasons why the number was so low, on top of the impact of COVID kind of slowing things down, was also the long-term care facilities were not, they were approved, if you remember, and had not been moved forward. So today's approval of the long-term care will bring up that number a little bit further.
And Ms. Brent, sorry I cut you off. Did you want to add anything as well?
No, that was perfect.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Redekop.
Yes, that's good. And then there was one other slide, the one that dealt with, I guess it's the one immediately before that, which is the stabilization reserve targets. And so we've identified the reserve target balances for categories directly, for which the region is directly responsible. Does the NRPS have reserve funds or reserve target balances that we're aware of?
Through the chair, I am not off the top of my head. I can't speak to specifically what their policy is in regards to their contingency or stabilization reserves.
Can we can that be a question we get back to you on, Councillor Redekop?
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful for members of council to know what the targets are that the NRPS has established and where they stand in relation to those targets. if in fact they've got targets. And if they don't, I think the recommendation would be that they should.
So
Thank you.
we'll consider that direction to staff.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll take that back with the police. I know, in talking with them that, in kind of conjunction with the, asset management program that they are also working with us, they are looking at that, but I'll get you more clarification, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Redekop, that's it?
That's it, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Height.
Yes, thank you. To follow up on Councilor Redekop's questions about NRPS, obviously there's a deficit that they're looking at, and we should be concerned that if it continues through the year, it's going to be at least 1% of their budget. Is it attributed to the casino and Niagara Falls Casino? If that's somewhere hidden in all these pages, I missed it.
Through the chair, the deficit that we're reporting is not tied to the casino, the anticipated or forecasted lost casino revenue. At Q1, the NRPS did forecast that they would not receive any of that revenue. At that point in time, we did fund with our corporate COVID funding. So it is shown right now as being fully funded as far as the bottom line is concerned. That deficit is attributable to the legal claim payout.
Are they anticipating it to be continued in the second half of the year as well? Or are they hoping that this is only for the first half of the year?
Through the chair, just to clarify, you're talking about the lost casino revenue?
No, the loss, this deficit that they have right now.
Oh yeah, so that's forecasted until the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the courts, are we looking at a further deficit to the end of the year with the courts?
Through the chair, that is the forecasted deficit. So that's through to the end of the year.
Okay. I found something surprising when I looked at this. One of the slides talked about garbage tag revenue off $500,000 already. Are you anticipating $1 million, close to $1 million deficit due to tags?
Through the chair, similar to your questions on the courts and the police, it's similar in that $500,000 loss has been forecasted until the end of the year. So that number could change, but that as of June 30th, that's what we forecasted it to be.
A follow-up, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, but when we find deficits like that, what are staff reviewing to figure out what's gone wrong? That seems like that's 250,000 tags, and I can't believe that that's how many tags people were using before, and now that we have every other week collection, that they don't need those tags.
I'm going to turn this over. We happen to have Commissioner Zvoniga here, so Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So, Councillor, it is something we are investigating further, and we'll look into and certainly include in our consideration of our 2022 budget request. I think what it is partially reflective of is the greater movement to recycling and green bin use, and we have seen a significant drop in the total amount of other waste coming through. So there's been a reduction there, but you're absolutely right. It's something we want to investigate and provide more detail, and we'll advise council on that.
Well, and the follow-up, and I know that Councillor Diodati's brought up, and maybe Councillor Senzik before, about the concern of dumping in city containers that are throughout the city. Are we having people doing that instead of buying tags?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Councillor, I think that's certainly a valid question, valid concern. I doubt that we haven't seen the kind of volume that we're seeing offset in terms of budget, but certainly that you're absolutely right that any garbage that goes in those containers is a missed, if you like, revenue in the garbage bin.
Councillor Height, I'm just wondering, because you're getting into some interesting details, can we give direction to the commissioner to have something for us at our next Public Works meeting?
I don't think it's that important. I don't want to micromanage. I want to be assured that staff are seriously looking into some of these deficits to try to turn them around before year end. So they aren't at that level. That's all. I don't think a report's necessary. It's a waste of time for staff as long as staff are doing their job, and it sounds like they are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You can turn your microphone off now, Bruce, in case you say something bad. Okay, good. Okay, I don't see anybody else wishing to speak to this report at this time. So, can you please vote electronically, yes or no? And that is carried. Oh, and by the way, Councillor Height, I was just trying to be humorous. I was not aiming anything at you with that. So, there we go.
That's okay. I can handle it.
Okay, good. Next report, 6.2. Well, actually, we're going to start off with it by having a presentation from Nicole Wolf, the Construction Engineer and Facilities Management Director, concerning customer service strategy. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning. I'm just trying to share my screen here.
Okay, you're good to go.
I'm good to go. Good stuff. Thank you. So my name is Nicole Wolf. I'm the Director of Construction, Energy, and Facilities Management, and I will be providing you an update on the status of the Integrated Customer Service Modernization Strategy. This is one of the key initiatives under Council Strategic Priority 4 and Objective 4.1. In terms of the agenda, a short background, the strategic plan, the iterative approach we've taken to date, our first big project in this initiative, and how we're improving customer experience, and then our next steps. So with respect to the background, 2015 strategic plan and the 2018 strategic priorities both focused on access to region services and include in improving customer service. And in 2018, Council adopted the Integrated Customer Service Modernization Strategy. This is a customer-focused model with a no wrong door approach, with the goal of making our services accessible to all and accessible across multiple platforms to suit the needs of our customers. Multi-platform access isn't going to go away at this point. It's become particularly important as we dealt with COVID. And with the onset of COVID, the region was able to pivot to offer much of their services online or through telephone, with a few in-person appointments being maintained for community services and public health. As I said, with the experience over the past 18 months, we will need to continue with multi-platform access model, and technology is going to become more important as we move forward. In late 2018, a customer service steering committee was formed with representation across numerous departments and divisions. One of the first things that we did during that was to establish a strategic plan. This was a collaboration, a partnership with all the member divisions, and the vision, mission, and goals are stated on this slide. Following an iterative approach was particularly important to the steering committee, as it allowed them to move forward with small projects across a number of themes and to learn from each and to move incrementally. Many of the pilot projects resulted in enhancements to customer service across the region departments, and they definitely directly informed the consolidation of customer service at our headquarters. COVID, along with bringing a lot of bad things, did provide a unique opportunity for us. And in light of some of the security incidents that have happened at headquarters in the past few years, there was a decision to make some changes to customer service at headquarters. So we're consolidating the 3 reception desks into a new customer service team. towards providing one-stop shopping for members of the public and clients as they access region services. The new team involves some organizational changes. The 2 Campbell West customer service staff moved to CEFM in January. The public health customer service rep moved in June, and the community services representation or representative position moved in early September. Each brought a number of telephone lines that we were able to consolidate into one incoming line for public inquiries, and each brought different knowledge base and different tasks that have been incorporated into the team. The team also includes 3 temporary screener positions and 9 temporary call center staff to support the region's call center, COVID call center operations and response. So construction on the new desk is scheduled to start late in September. So you will be seeing some hoarding going up soon, and to be complete, or rather open to the public, January 2022. Just a bit more information on the desk. This is a visual of it, obviously. The biggest change is that we'll have a single point of access for members of the public, service providers, and visitors. They'll all be entering from the Campbell East doors. As they enter, you'll see the desk on the left-hand side of the corridor with queuing on the right-hand side, and then facing towards the International Plaza doors, you'll see some automated turnstiles providing access control to the remainder of the building. All of the customer service associates will be able to answer questions and provide services across a number of our region services. And if they can't answer the question or provide the service, the public will be directed to the appropriate person in the departments. Can't stress enough that this has been a partnership between the various departments, and with their help, the new customer service team has expanded on many of the operational and business process improvements that they had already initiated in the past few years. So we now have access to a Confluence knowledge base. That's a shared knowledge base with over 800 articles. I think there's about 50 region staff who have access to that right now. We have access to language translation services. We've been able to merge multiple department telephone numbers to one incoming customer service line, allowing us to process higher call volumes with very short wait times and minimal dropped calls. And we're tracking our call line KPI to help with scheduling and improve our service delivery. Certainly the consolidation of the frontline customer service at the headquarters, it's a major step in modernization, but it's the first phase in really planned improvements. So we've got some short-term and long-term goals. In the short term, we're continuing to build on what's already there. The knowledge base, expand the variety of first-tier services. We're looking to manage room booking events, manage the use of the International Plaza, add point of sale, and any other synergies that are available through the departments. One of the things we're really looking forward to is launching some more digital platforms. So adding the online chat function. That's been very successful through community services and public health, and we're looking forward to bringing that to our customer service team as well. And in the long term, the most, not the most notable one, but certainly the one that will bring the most change will be when we're able to implement a CRM software for customer relationship management. That will make a big difference. That's a very costly item. So we've been taking that in really small incremental steps, and we're working closely with IT towards realizing that, hopefully within the next year and a half. So a brief presentation, and that concludes it, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Similar in nature to the earlier report, CSD 49-2021 is very much linked to this. So I'd like to have the motion moved and seconded to come on board. So Councillor Edgar, would you please move this? And Councillor Furtick, would you please second this? And, yep, and, okay, very good. So please, we'll go through questions, and Councillor Redekop, you're first on board.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. I may have missed this. Was there discussion or dialogue with some of the local municipalities that have fairly robust customer service response teams?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have been, we do have a working group with the other municipalities, and we've been working closely with them. That was somewhat put on pause due to COVID, obviously, and we're looking forward to picking that initiative up again, and also in the future looking towards, are there any synergies with the LAMs as well?
Yeah, I think that's very important, because obviously the interface with the public is extremely important. And the second question I have, do you have any idea yet what the human resources need will be in order to set up this plan, or will you be utilizing existing human resources spread throughout the operation?
So to date, we have used only existing FTEs. We haven't added any new FTEs to the staff complement. I don't think I can fully answer the question at this point, because we're still in the infancy of planning right now. But certainly we will be looking for synergies across the existing complement rather than adding to the complement.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Redekop. I do not see any other speakers at this particular point in time. So the motion is on the floor. Please vote electronically, yes or no. That is carried. Just a quick comment, post that report as well. You're saying a whole lot of things, Nicole, that I really like. The investments in technology and CRM and all of this, very, very pleased to see that coming into play. So thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, the next report that we're going to put on the floor is CWCD 2021, a memorandum from Bruce Zawaniga, and that's 6.5 on your agenda. Councillor Gale, I believe you're moving that. Councillor Whalen, would you be okay to second that? Good. Please go ahead, Councillor Gale.
Chair, I only found out less than a month ago that during the whistleblower investigation and the purchasing process of the biosolids program, Thomas Nutrient Solutions was being investigated by the Ministry of Environment for alleged offenses related to the Ontario Water Resources Act and the Nutrient Management Act. So, as per the Commissioner's memo before us, we now know that regional staff did not advise the independent investigators, Kroll, who were reviewing the whistleblower complaints, that the province was investigating Thomas Nutrient Solutions. Kroll is the investigative firm that made several recommendations as a result of the whistleblower complaints, contrary to what was leaked from some people in the confidential meeting to a local reporter. That was shameful, and those who leaked the information should resign. My first question is to the Director of Procurement, Mr. Minaj. Did any staff notify the Fairness Advisor during the procurement process of this provincial investigation?
Mr. Minaj, are you on the line?
I am, Chair.
Okay, please.
So through the Chair, I would advise that at no time was I, the Fairness Commissioner, or the Evaluation Committee made aware of this.
Thank you for that answer.
The active procurement process. You're welcome.
Okay. The region was notified of the provincial investigation on February 25th, 2020, approximately 1 month after Public Works Committee disagreed with the staff recommendation to sole source to Thomas Nutrient Solutions after a competing company complained about the region's flawed and unfair process. And we now know from the memo received from the Commissioner of Public Works that the Minister of Environment was investigating Thomas Nutrient Solutions at the same time as the whistleblower investigation being conducted by Kroll and the region procurement process being completed by regional staff. To the Commissioner of Public Works, were you aware of the February 25th, 2020 letter from the Ministry of Environment or the fact that the province was investigating Thomas Nutrient Solutions prior to me raising this issue on August 26, 2021? And if yes, when were you aware?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So no, I became aware when you raised the matter. I was not previously aware. I would caution, Councillor, and I'm certain you're aware, that the letter from the environment was a request for information to the region. It was not actually a notification of an investigation. That was part of the messaging, but the purpose of the letter to us was to request information from us.
Thank you. Typically, the Commissioner updates the Chair of Public Works Committee of ongoing issues. So my question is to the Chair of Public Works, Councillor Rigby. Were you aware of the February 25th letter for the Ministry of Environment, or the fact that the province was investigating Thomas Nutrient Solutions prior to the raising of this issue on August 26th? And if yes, when were you aware?
Councillor Rigby, I'm not, do you wish to make an answer to that?
Well, I had no recollection of being aware of it at that time.
I'm going to go to CAO Tripp here at this point. Councillor Gale, thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, and I guess just acknowledging the fact that I don't think actually at the particular time frame Mr. Swaniga was here. In fact, I was in the acting CAO role, but also carrying responsibilities of commissioner at the same time. But in terms of the question to Councillor Rigby, I'm not aware of any occasion, certainly since I've been here, but even previous, that a matter of this nature had been brought to either the commissioner or the chair of the Public Works Committee. Perhaps Councillor Rigby could correct me because he's been chair for quite a number of years. It's operational in nature, so I wasn't aware of it, that the question is coming. I wasn't aware of this request for information and allegation, because that's exactly what it is. We don't even know the nature of the allegation. So that wouldn't typically come to either the commissioner or the chair of the committee, unless Councillor Rigby can correct me.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Gale.
I'm sorry, I think Councillor Rigby was talking.
No, go ahead, Councillor Gale.
Okay. So to the acting CAO, were you aware of the were you aware of the provincial investigation prior to August 26th? Yes or no, and if yes, when?
Through Chair, I just indicated I was not.
Okay, thank you. Finally, to the regional chair. I think Chair Bradley's on the list here. Were you aware of the investigation prior to August 26th? Yes or no, and if yes, when?
Is the regional chair on the line?
He is right there, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bradley, if you so wish.
No. Thank you. So I concur with the memo that it is a contractor who is being investigated and not the region. However, it is the region's biosolids program, and the region has some of the information requested by the province. Once regional staff were made aware of the provincial investigation, council should have been notified, especially when staff were recommending to councils to not select the lowest compliant bid at a savings reported to be over $5 million. So my next question to the Director of Procurement: does the regional procurement bylaw make reference that all contractors for the region must comply with the applicable legislation, whether provincial or federal?
Mr. Zvoniga?
No, I believe that's Mr. Minaj.
Oh, okay, Mr. Minaj, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Councillor Gale. Through the chair, I would say that the current procurement bylaw does not provide a provision for that notification, specifically a notice of investigation.
Okay, I disagree with you on that, but we'll move on from there. Also, I know you don't have the RFP in front of you, but in the RFP, there are references that the contractor must comply with the Nutrient Management Act to the best of your recollection. Is that correct?
Mr. Minaj, go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, I would presume with the team that was involved in developing the specification for this, it would reference that. But you are correct. I'm not aware exactly of whether it does or not, or does not. Sorry.
And I know it does. So thank you very much for that answer. The memo received in council correspondence. Interestingly, staff direction was to prepare a report for the Public Works Committee. The memo states that Niagara Region, and I quote, Niagara Region Council is informed of investigations where the region itself is being investigated or where the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, has formally advised regional staff that an investigation has concluded with the findings, actions that impact our activities. Given that this was written by the Commissioner, does the CAO, or acting CAO, agree with this response, that when the Ministry of Environment has formally advised staff that an investigation has been concluded, Regional Council will be informed?
Through you, Chair, I'm just considering the question. I don't think it's necessarily a blanket statement. If there's implications for the region as an organization, as further stated, that certainly would be the case. Having a conversation earlier today with Mr. Maffei, there could be CRA investigations, there could be any number of investigations that could be taking place that I'm not aware, and I don't believe we would be reporting on a regular basis to council. So I don't mean to be contradictory to what's in the memo, but I just don't think it's as simple as a blanket statement.
So again, when an investigation has been concluded, that Regional Council should be informed. Your answer to that is yes, no, or what, please?
Through you, Chair, I think it really depends on the nature of the investigation or the conviction. Certainly, if it has implications either legally or operationally on the region's business, absolutely the council be informed. But I'm not sure I can unilaterally say that would be the case, and I don't think it has been historically.
Okay, thank you. So I must express my concerns. Is it true that in 2016, this is to the CAO, an employee with Thomas Nutrient Solutions admitted to fabricating reports to the Ministry of Environment in direct violation of the Environmental Protection Act and the Nutrient Management Act?
Through Chair, I'm not aware of that. I don't have any of that documentation in front of me.
Okay, Mr. Acting CEO, I want to make sure that for the record, you're saying that you knew nothing of the 2016 MOE offense, understanding at the time you were Commissioner of Public Works.
Chair, on a point of privilege,
Go ahead, Councillor Height.
I'm finding this interrogation somewhat inappropriate. I don't know what Councillor Gale's looking into, if he's trying to harass staff with all of these questions. If he's talking about personnel issues, we should be in camera. We shouldn't be dealing with this publicly. If it thinks there's any wrongdoing, like this is so inappropriate. I think you should conclude this. And if he has 100 questions, write them out, send them to staff. He shouldn't be interrogating them at a committee meeting.
Mr. Chair, this is totally a public document. All these are public facts I'm giving you, no opinions. And I wonder what Councillor Height is trying to hide on this.
I'm not trying to hide anything, Councillor.
I'd like to continue, Mr. Chair.
No,
Chair,
hold
on.
Can you make a statement on a point of privilege if you think this is inappropriate?
I'm going to rule on this one basically stating that I believe if there's going to be continued discussion about individual members of our staff, including the CAO, etc., this really should be a closed session item. So,
Mr. Chair, this is not a closed session item. This is totally public. I can give it all to the press, but I thought council would be a great time to debate it.
Well, you can debate sorry, Councillor Gale, and I'm not trying to be flip in any way, shape, or form, but I do believe that if it's individual, if you're doing accusations with staff, I do believe that should at least be in closed session so that, we can have a full and frank discussion from that point of view.
Mr. Chair, I've never accused anybody in this speech. I don't intend on accusing anybody. These are all facts. I'm asking for questions on behalf of the public. I've faced roadblocks all along. I'm wondering what these councillors are trying to hide on this. I've got more to expose here. I think I should continue on. The public has the right to know.
One moment, Councillor Gale. Councillor Gale, I'm going to step back to a request that came from staff, specifically on the questions that would be brought forward this morning on this. And you provided 4 very high-level questions that you were going to be dealing with. You did not provide any specifics like you are currently going into. And the problem is that staff are in, I would say, a difficult situation because they do not have all of this information in front of them that it is that you're driving into. So I'm going to ask you, and because I understand, you know, this is very important where you're going with this. May I request that we have a very specific set of questions that are provided to staff. This can come back to council as we're going on, and then we can move from there. I just do not believe that staff are in a position to answer an awful lot of these things at this point. So it's really more procedurally, Councillor Gale, and I think also a degree of fairness to make sure we get the right answers in front of us.
Mr. Chair, I disagree totally on this. I'm not in favor of that. I'm bringing out facts that are there that I think that people should know about, but regardless if they say they don't know it, that's fine.
On a point of privilege, Chair, if he has a problem with it, he can try to have you overruled and have a vote on it and not just argue it.
Yep, fair comment.
Mr. Chair, there's been roadblocks all along. This is another one by Councillor Height. Eventually the truth will come out on all this. It should come out today, but I'll be giving it all to the press later.
Go ahead,
order, Chair.
Councillor Redicott.
If Councillor Gale disagrees with the ruling of the chair, he can move to overrule the ruling of the chair. It's that simple.
So what is your ruling, Mr. Chair?
That this line of questioning at this particular point in time should not proceed. What I would suggest to you is that you provide in detail the information and the questions that you wish to move forward with, and staff will be more than happy to provide answers to it, but once they have the information in front of them, so they can fully investigate and make sure that you are satisfied as well as council is satisfied.
So Chair, according to what Councillor Redicott say, I would like a vote on this because I find that all these items, or a lot of these items, have been hidden from staff all along. I'm trying to expose them now for the benefit of the people. So if you want to have a vote on this, fine, but okay, they will all come out later.
Okay, so Councillor Gale, so you're moving that I be overruled and you're allowed to continue.
Yes,
do you have
recorded, please?
Oh yeah, and do you have a seconder for that? I do not see that you have a seconder for that.
So how is that left then, Chair?
So I will go to the experts on this, but my ruling, I believe, stands at this particular point in time.
That's correct.
So when does this come out up next, Chair? You wish all my questions sent in advance for this, as according to Councillor Height, complaining on this. So I'll send all my questions through to everyone on council, the media, and staff.
Okay, one moment, please.
I'm surprised I didn't have a seconder. Wow.
Yeah, so Councillor Gale, the obvious place that this should come to, and I'm going to offer this as opinion, you can make another suggestion if you wish, but this really should come to Public Works. So I'm wondering, can you provide in writing to staff the questions that you have in this particular area, and staff are going to either have this prepared for council or for the next Public Works meeting. It depends how long it takes to go through and do the full investigation.
So I don't think that's fair, Chair. I will try to do this, but obviously Councillor Height and others here are trying to hide the facts from coming out. So,
Councillor Gale,
yes.
You're personally attacking me. I'm not trying to hide anything. And to the chair, our code of conduct suggests that our staff and we shouldn't be abused, bullied, or intimidated. And I believe that's what's going on.
I disagree, Chair. He said this before. I'm asking questions with facts.
Yeah. Councillor Gale.
If you can't take that, get out of the business.
Yeah, Councillor Gale, please. So I think we'll bring your questions to a close, but I do know that you're going to be firing things through for additional information to be brought forward. Thank you, Councillor Gale. I'm going to move to Councillor Redicott.
Thank you, Chair, and I tend to agree with Councillor Height in terms of the tenor of the approach adopted by Councillor Gale. Certainly he is right. But I'm going to give Councillor Gale, I'm going to give you some free legal advice. Be careful what you put in writing and distribute to the media. I'll leave it at that. I did have 3 or 4 questions though, Chair. The first is, does staff typically provide members of council with information relative to third-party investigations that they're made aware of, such as this letter from the ministry on this particular issue?
I'm going to go to Mr. Tripp.
Thank you, through you, Chair. No, we would not.
And does staff have any understanding of whether or not the investigation referred to in the letter from the ministry has been concluded?
Through you, Chair, it was the last question. We know that it hasn't been concluded and there are no findings. They could share no detail with us. And again, I just restate that we don't even know what the allegation is.
Right. And so there'd be nothing for you to pass on to members of council if the investigation were concluded, because your understanding is it hasn't been concluded.
Through Chair, that is correct.
And I think you also just indicated that you don't know whether there's been a violation of the Nutrient Management Act with respect to this particular matter. Or do you?
Chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, I can appreciate that Councillor Gill has concerns, which is understandable if they are to be brought forward. But to be fair to staff also, it'd be great to have them prepare ahead of time and come back with some answers. So that's just my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whalen. Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to continue on with the parts that I don't have any questions at all to anyone.
Sure, you may make statements if you wish. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Pardon me, I'm just cutting out some questions here. So, Chair, I made reference to the point of 2016 where Thomas Liquids admitted to fabricating environmental reports. I contacted the former councillor who was the chair of Public Works in 2016. He confirmed to me that he was not made aware. He was also not aware of this vital information when staff recommended in 2017 to extend the contract without tender by 3 years to Thomas Nutrient Solutions. And for that matter, council without this information voted in favor of the extension with no knowledge of the fabricated environmental reports. I find it absolutely unacceptable that staff managing our water and sewage treatment plants did not notify the Kroll investigators, the RFP Fairness Advisor, the regional chair, or the chair of Public Works that the Ministry of Environment was investigating Thomas Nutrient Solutions during the whistleblower investigation and during the tender process. I find it also unacceptable that council was not informed that the Ministry of Environment concluded in 2016 that Thomas Nutrient Solutions fabricated reports. Let me read to you parts of this provincial order. Quote, and this is from the ministry, I reasonably believe that the company being ordered and the staff employed by the company has contravened a provision of the Nutrient Management Act. The report continues, I therefore believe that the requirements specified in this order are in the public interest and necessary to ensure protection of the environment. Yet regional council was not informed that one of their contractors operating a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract service and who fabricated reports was investigated by the province and issued orders to comply. Now there is yet another provincial investigation into the same company.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Go ahead, Councillor Redicombe.
I'm very interested in what Councillor Gale has to say, and I'm even more interested in having access to the documentation he's referring to, not just quotes from here, there, and everywhere. And I'm not even sure how this all relates to the letter that was sent out in February of 2020. And I'm not sure the direction that this is all going, but it would be very helpful if members of this committee, if we're expected to give some thought and consideration to whatever it is that Councillor Gale is driving at, if we had more than just his version of what's going forward, because you know, he now refers to a 2016 investigation that was concluded. I thought we were talking about the 2020 investigation. So I'm finding this very confusing and convoluted. And I'm presuming that Councillor Gale has an objective here and has some specific items that he wishes to impart to the members of this committee. The difficulty is I'm not getting the context, nor am I able to follow the program because it's not made available to us. So I would, my point of order is that if this committee is going to consider what Councillor Gale's issues are, he should provide us in advance with some information rather than expecting us to be able to follow this because it's confusing.
So Councillor Gale, I think the commentary on this is that we really do need to have access to the information, A, that you have available to you, and B, that can be provided by staff. So can I respectfully request that you provide the information to senior staff as well as to senior staff, possibly to the Public Works Chair, and also myself. And what we can do then is get this into a coherent way so that you can actually dig into your facts and make sure that we are all on the same page with this. Does that seem like a fair approach, Councillor Gale?
Sure, I agree with you on that one. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to everyone there because the point of this is that council is not being informed. They accepted a tender. They weren't informed of these infractions happening and that there was an investigation now. They also didn't look at the scoring sheets. They didn't know these things. I would think that councillors like Councillor Redekop and that would have gone farther with questions and that had they have known about these things. And these are all from regional files, these documents that were given to me by a whistleblower. So I'm very happy. I thank the citizens who have trusted me in forwarding this information, but I'm surprised at the roadblocks from councillors that I've come up with here, but I'll provide that with you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Councillor Gale. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to this morning? Councillor Redekop, please go ahead.
Yeah, just on the final comment made by Councillor Gale, is there a whistleblower, a new whistleblower complaint that Councillor Gale is dealing with, or is he referring to the whistleblower complaints that we had received and had been dealing with?
Chair, may I answer that, Chair?
Please. Sorry, I got to turn on the speaker. Go ahead, Councillor Gale.
Yeah, I said the word whistleblower. This is anonymous letters that were dropped in my mailbox. So the term whistleblower meaning someone coming forward and formally laying a complaint. No, these were regional documents that were dropped in my mailbox.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gale. Councillor Redekop?
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful if all of that information was passed on to staff to determine whether in fact there is a whistleblower complaint that should be investigated following the whistleblower procedure. I guess that would be my observation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Redekop. I tend to agree with you on that. So Councillor Gale, so you'll be able to provide the information and hopefully we'll be able to do a thorough investigation of this and get this all moving forward. Is that okay, Councillor Gale?
Yeah, Chair, I was going to ask for you to get in touch with the Ombudsman to investigate this because I don't think we can investigate ourselves with this. When Kroll investigated, we didn't forward this information to him, which I think was wrong, but I'll provide this to you and councillors and staff and see where they go from here. I would appreciate it being looked into.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gale. Anyone else wishes to speak to this morning? I do have a motion on the floor that we are dealing with, which is 6.5. Please vote electronically, yes or no. And that is carried. We have two other items that are here, which would be 6.3 and 6.4. Do we wish to take those consent items together as blocks? Does anyone wish to separate either one of those? I do know. Councillor Gale, please.
Here, you're talking about the confidential items, is that right?
No. 6.3, which is the multi-residential tax ratio reduction, and the demolition credit extension.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So seeing that nobody wants to separate those off, can I please have Councillor Furtick, could you move that? And Councillor Yip, would you second that, please? Can you please vote electronically, yes or no? Okay, that is carried. Other business. Does anybody have any other business they wish to bring forward this morning? Seeing none. Closed session. Do any committee members wish to go into closed session to discuss any of the confidential items? Councillor Gale, which item would you like to speak to? Which item?
Second item, Chair, please.
A matter respecting litigation or potential litigation?
If that's the title of it, yeah.
Outstanding development charge collection.
You got it. Yep, that's it.
Okay, very good. So we will move to closed session. So Councillor Gale, you're going to move that we move to closed session. Councillor Campion, would you please second that?
Chair, I'm not sure because I'm not sure where Councillor Gale might end up with this one, and I may end up in a conflict of interest again.
Okay, so do I have a seconder then? I'm looking at the screen. Councillor Whalen. Please vote electronically, yes or no. Okay, that is carried. So actually, before we do go into the closed session, I would remind you of your obligations respecting closed session. Those who are participating electronically in the closed session must ensure that no other person is in the location from which they are taking part in the meeting, or make appropriate arrangements so that any other persons cannot see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place. If this is not possible, you must withdraw from the meeting until it has been reconvened in open session. So they are now securing the room here. Thank you. Okay, we're good to go here. So with that, 2 items of closed session items. The first is confidential CSCC 24-2021, a matter of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, outstanding development charge collections 550 North Service Road, Grimsby. Councillor Height, can I have you move that? And Councillor Rigby, can I have you second that? Please vote electronically, yes or no. And that is carried.
Chair, on the second one, can I have a recorded vote, please?
Yeah, sure. So the next is the confidential CSD 53-2021, a matter respecting litigation or potential litigations under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, outstanding development charge collections for Grimsby. So, Councillor Gale, would you move this motion? Councillor Furtick, would you second this, please? There's a recorded vote requested, so I'm turning this over to Anne Marie. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Bradley.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Easton.
Support.
Councillor Edgar.
Yes.
Councillor Furtick.
Yes.
Councillor Gale.
No.
Councillor Height.
Yes.
Councillor Yip.
In favor?
Councillor Redicott.
Yes.
Councillor Rigby.
Yes.
Councillor Whalen.
Yes.
Chair Foster.
Yes.
That is carried.
That is carried. Which brings us to the end of our meeting. So the next meeting will be held on Wednesday, October the 13th, in 2021 at 9:30 a.m. And with that, being there's no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good day, guys.